and welcome to Biz Today. I'm Nazareen Ebrahim. As you know, every week we profile successful entrepreneurs, get experts into studio to talk to you about trending topics in the world of entrepreneurship, and we take a look at very interesting initiatives going on around us so that you can participate and get the best out of your business. This week, however, we've got a very interesting gentleman in studio. I consider him a mentor and a guide, especially in the line of work that I do, and I've had the pleasure of being mentored by him. Atul Padalkar grows entrepreneurs. And what does it mean? Well, you're going to have to find out more, so stay tuned. Atul Padalkar is a South African renowned entrepreneurial mentor and entrepreneur himself, and someone who just has a general interest in growing entrepreneurs. Well, what does it mean? We have him in studio today to tell us more about it. Welcome to Biz Today, Atul.
Thank you, Nazareen. It's an honor and pleasure to be here.
It's so great for me to be speaking to someone I consider and hold in such high esteem. I've had the pleasure of being mentored by you in the Minara Chambers Entrepreneur Competition, which for viewers, I'd like to say is a competition that happens in KZN. But please be sure to find out from your chambers in your city around the country if they are hosting similar initiatives. Atul, tell us a little bit about your background, what it is that made you decide to become an entrepreneur. So your history, background, education, where do you want to start?
Well, it goes back to the times when I was young and I wanted to join the armed forces, and I tried my attempt to join the National Defence Academy in India, where I come from. We don't have conscription, we have voluntary military service.
So, voluntary military service.
Yeah, which basically means that while we are doing our graduation, we have the opportunity to also do something called the National Cadet Corps, and that allows us to train, and the C certificate that one gets gives us an easier entry into the regular armed forces. So this is nice because as a student you can study on the one hand, you can also be preparing for your career. That's what I'm at my heart in a certain sense. I'm a soldier at my heart. I still have my batchmates serving right now, but that's one of the things which I've learned is that this is a fight, only in a different way. That is what entrepreneurship is about. So the soldier mindset trained me for what I am today. I'm a chemist by training. I did my BSc in chemistry, and when the option of having a career in the armed forces didn't work out, I used the training that I prepared myself for to apply for an MBA. Did a master in management studies from Wellinger, 89 batch. So that's a full-fledged MBA, 2 years of absolute hardcore sweat and toil. After that, I joined Lintas, which was the advertising agency for Unilever. So for 2 years, it was all about soaps, detergents, and Unilever products, which was great and exciting, a lot of hard work.
A good training ground, you would
Excellent
say.
Training ground. I mean, we as management trainees were taken through every department: media planning, production, execution, filmmaking. Wow. And this brings me back to those days. In fact, we used to have Umatic, not Beta as today we are. So we used to send all our advertisements, but advertising is a great career as a starting point. But over a period I realized that I need to be exposed to the full spectrum of marketing, and that's what took me to a career in marketing with Sibagaigi and then Colgate Palmolive. So I sold toothpaste and I traveled the whole country. I was a brand manager. And it was a fantastic exposure working with a countrywide sales force, designing campaigns, developing products, working with R&D, looking after the brand. That was great. I then joined Godrej Sara Lee, started a business for the company in household insecticides, mosquito repellents in particular. My training as a chemist always came to the rescue because I was able to understand the product and formulation a lot much better than what if I had not been trained that way would have been. I was posted in 1998 to South Africa, which was actually supposed to be a 3-month stint, and then it became longer and longer. I was based in Johannesburg, and from there I operated across most of the region. I've seen a fair amount of South Africa. I had the lovely opportunity to see the whole country by road. I used to carry my samples, and especially Mpumalanga, Limpopo were my favorite areas because that's where the mosquitoes were all over the place.
Of course.
So I managed single-handedly the entire operation in the country for a while, about 5 years or so, and then when our head office asked me to move to Durban because this is where Sara Lee was based. I relocated to Durban, and since then Durban has been almost my second home. I've been here in South Africa for 18 years and Durban for close to about 12 years now. So that was my journey, but that journey came to an abrupt end when one fine day I saw 9/11 happening, and that changed the plans for the company. We were planning to roll out a new product, and that was not going to be feasible as a result of the 9/11 and many other changes that happened as a result of that. So I had the option to go back to India, and in the meanwhile I had settled very well, loved the country, children's schooling, wife was happily well settled, doing her own work, loved South Africa. So we said to ourselves, let's give it a chance to see how we could start and do something else in South Africa. It was a complete mindset shift, because all my while so far I was a corporate employee working for a boss, working for an organization, was very comfortable living in the good life that a corporate brings to you and the hard work that it requires you to do.
Sure.
To become an entrepreneur was a complete gear change. I had to almost literally reinvent myself from scratch.
At which point was this, and how long ago was that when you decided?
Well, this was, I would say, going back to about 10 to 12 years ago.
Sure.
And it was an opportunity where me and my wife, we sat down and we said, we can always go back. We still have a house in Bombay. So the doors were open already in a sense. But then we said, if we give it a shot here and see what we can do and make it work, then maybe this is our only and best opportunity. So we said, we'll give it what we can. We are both qualified. We know that our skills have a need in this country. Let's see what we can contribute. We were already having property and some investments in the country. So I won't say the bridge was burned. The bridge was absolutely strong to go back. It was just that we decided to take this as a leap of faith to see that while we are still young and while we are still experienced, can we actually take this opportunity and become entrepreneurial in our own ways.
At that point, you and your wife, both highly qualified, able to give something back to the country, decided to choose the entrepreneurial route. In a new environment, that's not always easy.
No, it's not, because especially coming from a very middle class, conservative background from where I come from, to start your own business was not something that was ever a part of an agenda.
Yes.
So it was a brave jump in its own way. And very few people in our family have gone that route. So in that sense, we've almost kind of been, pioneers or path breakers in certain sense of the word.
How did you start developing alongside? It's because when I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I know we're going to hear the same from you, is that partners are so important. And of course, a husband or a wife is so critical to that process. So having someone work alongside you, I'm sure made the journey much more worthwhile.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have done this on my own. And I'm very blessed that I have a very supportive, understanding wife. I also have a critic in her. So I always get an outsider's impartial view from time to time. As much as she hopes for my success, she's also very specific about her criticism. And that's very useful to have. And she's a researcher, so she really sees it from a very objective point of view.
Of course.
And that's very helpful. And as I always say, having two engines on a plane is better than having one engine. Even if one engine packs up, you can still keep flying.
Absolutely. So the entrepreneurial streak hit you, and you started developing this concept. You've been involved in numerous projects across the country, but I know you as a person, as you are famously known as a person who grows entrepreneurs. How did this come about?
Well, Nazareen, to go back, what we first started off was as a research company, and we did a lot of research in terms of understanding economic challenges in the country. We found that the level of education was much more to be desired.
Was this in the early 2000s?
Yeah,
2001?
Around that stage. So we did a lot of research in the entrepreneurship space, and we found that there were many gaps. The whole ecosystem had many flaws and weaknesses and gaps in between. We saw that some of the most basic things that one would expect as a support mechanism for entrepreneur, for example, access to affordable office space. We found that was one of the major critical gaps in the entire ecosystem.
Sure.
And that was leading a lot of entrepreneurs to fail. People had to operate from home, people had to operate from their garages. They were not being taken seriously by corporates. They did not have formal meeting places. They worked from coffee shops. They didn't have a way in which they could employ staff. For us, that was a wake-up call. And we realized that what people need actually is a supportive enough location from where they can operate from where they can hire staff, from where they can expand and grow their businesses. So that's where we actually decided to put in a shared office space. And as we progressed our understanding into this space, we then got to know that what we had actually put together is actually called an incubator. And that then started us getting more focused into an understanding into incubation, incubators, how they work, etc., etc. We did apply for a bit of government funding, which didn't work out because we wanted to have an organic model in a way that we wanted the entrepreneurs to pay for a service. It's not easy because South African entrepreneurs tend to want a lot of things for free or pay very little as you can.
That's right.
So for us, that was one more journey, but that I think was a hard decision we took because that's what's made us sustainable in the process. Had we relied on grants or favors or donations and things like that, I don't think we would have become sustainable. Though it was a difficult journey, I think it was a worthwhile journey.
And much stronger in your setup.
Well, absolutely. And it was a challenge that we decided to take on, that if an entrepreneur finds our services useful enough and is prepared to pay for it, then we have a model which is globally replicable and is very closely aligned to what a developing country challenge is all about. Governments can do things. They are happy to put largely policy and those kinds of frameworks in place, enablers in place. But on the ground, what you need is entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs themselves can understand entrepreneurs themselves better. So we position ourselves as for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs.
And growing them in the space that you've set up.
Absolutely. And I think the starting part and the growing part are both slightly different. Starting is a different journey. It's basically to get going. But once you get going, to stay up, to stay afloat and to stay alive and keep your head above the water takes a very different set of skills.
If you've just joined us, you're watching Biz Today, and we are having in the studio Atul Padalkar. He is a leading entrepreneurial mentor based here in Durban, South Africa. But he's taking us through his journey of how he managed to get into the entrepreneurial space and what the experience has been like in the South African economy so far. When we come back, we'll be exploring what it means to be an entrepreneur. Stay tuned.